Welcome to the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast on the channel that's trying to answer the whys and hows of the game by talking through and dissecting game film and diving deeper to explain why the X's zig and the O's zag. I am Adam Marino, joined by Mr. Johnny Dell, and we are reminding you, as always, the most fun way to watch is on YouTube, where we go live. There you can comment into the live show. Be sure to hit the notification bell and turn on your notifications so you can be a part of the conversation. We also stream live on Facebook and X. Also, the audio versions are always found on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, if you are live with us in the chat, it's probably because you are subscribed, you've hit the notification bell, and turned those notifications on. So, when sharing with your friends, be sure to let them know. We also love to hear from you outside of our live show. Email us at johnnydellsfootballacademy@gmail.com, and you can always check out the website JFA49.com, as it is the most fun way to support the channel. Also, the way we boost the chat and boost the algorithm is to type out hashtag JD49. Yes, welcome in to the Johnny Dell Football Academy. It is Friday, August 23rd. It is a game day, so we'll get into that. Lots to go over as the 49ers do play their final preseason game. Preseason, like, I think we're all kind of over it and just ready to go. But we'll find out who is ready to go tonight, who isn't ready, what's going on after the preseason, how the roster shakes out, who's on the bubble, who's on the outside looking in. We'll get into all that. One announcement as well, as always. Thanks first of all to those boosting the algorithm. No Borders Sports. Colin in the UK, always good to see. Pretty good. That is a pretty good name. Mikey Gutierrez, Technic Chick. I bring up that also because he also comments a lot on Sports Idiot Nation, and I can make a special announcement that we just signed Johnny Dell to a one-day contract, and he will be. He's going to retire an idiot. Sports Idiot Nation, pleased to announce that, yes, my other sports podcast is signing Johnny Dell to a one-day contract later in September. So stay tuned. He will be on the show, Sports Idiot Nation. We just had our good friend Adriana from the New York Giants. We had her on. And seriously, guys, if you remember when we had her on the Johnny Dell show, it was just great to have her on and talk crap about all these other teams and talk about New York, the fun things to do there. Was so fun, great conversation, and we hope to have a conversation like that with Johnny and just have some fun. So that is coming up later next month.
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be awesome. I think we're going to be doing a pretty good topic. I think, you know, at least, you know, that's what you've intimated.
Yes, I've hinted. The faithful appreciate this conversation.
Yeah, they. I hope so. I just hope Miles doesn't derail us from what's really important in this conversation.
No, for sure.
So, you know, I'm excited. They signed me to a 1 day 0.0049 cent contract. You know, kind of one of those symbolic contracts. And I agreed to it. But
like a Frank Gore.
Yeah. Yeah, like a Frank Gore. Or I remember when they re-signed Jerry Rice to a contract so he could retire a 49er. And it was something like the official salary was $1,984,000. And then it like every number had symbolism in there. It was how many catches he had, this year he was drafted and everything. And it was all in a completely refundable. So they didn't actually cut him a check. It was like, here's the symbolic amount. And then that's what they paid him. So that's what Adam is done for me. And we're going to see. We're going to see. I don't know. I don't know about these Sports Idiot Nation people. They're a little wild. But
yep. Always
but
a
it'll
good
be
time.
good. Yeah.
Always
It's coming up in a is it 2 or 3 weeks?
Yeah, it's like 3 weeks ish. We'll keep you posted. Again, we'll always warn you so that you guys know. Just set your notification bells. So yes, follow Sports Idiot Nation wherever you get your social medias. And of course, just like on the Johnny Dell channel, make sure you hit the notification bell so that you can be notified when new content drops. All right. So are you watching this live tonight? What's going on?
Yeah, I'm gonna be watching it live, so I'm gonna be staying up a little bit late tonight. I got an early day tomorrow. I got a full day tomorrow of working with some teenagers,
Yep.
and so I'm leaving my house at like 5:15 in the morning, and the
Oh,
game starts at 9 o'clock my time. So you know what? You got
at
to do what
10
you got to
o'clock
do.
my time, buddy.
Yeah. So I looked up. I had to. This is my brain rabbit trailing. Looked up Jerry Rice's symbolic contract that he
Oh,
signed. It was
you
on
got
August 24th of 2006. I thought it was long farther ago than that, but it was a 1-day contract for $1,985,000, 800 or $1,985,806.49. So
interesting.
1985 being the year he was drafted, 49 for the 49ers, and I can't remember the significance of the 806, but that's what
Yeah,
it was.
806 was definitely not
Oh,
touchdown. It
no,
definitely wasn't
80
reception.
for his number,
Oh,
and
6.
then 6, was I that might be all pros or
Yeah.
1,000-yard seasons.
No, he had more than
No, he
that.
had more than that. He had more than that. Trying
Come
to
on.
come on, chat, you guys gotta know what did the 6 mean? Because we have 1985 for when he was drafted, number 80 for the number he wore with the 49ers, 49 cents for the 49ers. What's the 6? I don't know.
Yeah,
But I
it's
will
not.
definitely not be holding out on the contract with Adam like
I love the chat going off on that. That is hilarious. I love it. You
so.
guys are so awesome. So all right, let's get into when, and I want to know what the chat thinks as well. Let's get into, Brock Purdy. I still see that clip where he's frustrated when he's rolling out, running for his life. Which
Yeah.
we got to figure out if he's going to get more help on that side of the ball or on that side, but then the receivers as well. Is he going to get help? What are we looking at today?
Well, I sure hope he gets some help. We should see a one Juwan Jennings back in the lineup. We should see a little bit of Debo. Now, he's not going to get as much help as I think you would want. You would want Brandon Ayuk out there. You would want Ricky Pearsall to be out there. Ricky Pearsall dealing with a shoulder situation, which now the reports are coming out that apparently this has been a thing going back to before he was drafted, and the 49ers knew about it in the medicals, but they didn't think it would be an issue. And now we've aggravated this in mini camps and OTAs, and now aggravated it in training camp. This starts to smell like surgery or something is coming at some point here. Is this a situation where they're going to have to shut him down for the entire year? You can't be shutting your first round draft pick down in a year that you're trying to go to the Super Bowl, and he's a receiver, and Brandon Ayuk is not in the building yet. So I don't know. This whole receiver situation, I'm over it. I want it to be done. Um, but it's not, and it is legitimate issues right now. So not good news on that front. Now, the bit that has been good news, there's been some buzz that Trent Williams and the 49ers are really close to hammering out a renewed deal and a restructured deal. I think this is one that's just we've been waiting for it to come around and happen. That you figured, if there's anybody on this team this year that is going to be getting a new contract that you don't not do is Trent Williams. So, they're getting close to figuring that out and knocking that out. And as much like we had talked about in the show, I think that's actually going to reduce the cap numbers over the next couple of years. Because they're going to add on some extra void years and move a lot of that stuff down the road. It allows them to do that again. But we won't see Trent obviously tonight. So I would not expect to see Brock Purdy in the offense get more than maybe 2 or 3 series. As long as each series goes more than 3 plays or 4 plays, I think they're looking for a snap count, maybe about 20 snaps is really what they're aiming for. So if they get 2 long drives, it'll be over.
Yeah.
The question is, can you get 2 long drives? How much is Debo actually going to be in there? Usually they try and save wear and tear on his body with a lot of the stuff he does until the season starts. So you're going to have Juwan Jennings out there. What the rest of the receiving core, it's not going to be that much better than what he had last week, but we should have, maybe some better offensive line protection. You should have George Kittle out there, at least give some sort of help. What I don't want to see is Brock Purdy being thrown out there again with only three fellow starters, and that being Jake Brendel, uh, Dominic Pooney, and Colton McKivitz. Like, I don't want to see that again. So
Yeah, we don't want to see him running for his life and just, or, well, I'll be okay with him running for his life if he's in good shape and he just gets out of bounds, then I guess that's fine because um he's not getting hit. It's the hits that I don't want to see, right?
right.
So well, yeah, we'll see how many. I hope that he gets a one long sustained drive and then another short one, even if it ends in a punt or whatever, where we can look back and say, okay, there was a lot of good things here, a lot of good reads he made. Protection was okay, things like that. That's what I'm hoping for. What are you hoping for out of the quarterback situation for this game once Brock Purdy leaves the game?
I think it's going to be very similar to what we saw last game. I really do. I think you're going to see Josh Dobbs come in. You might see Tanner Mordecai get some earlier reps, but I don't think so. I think his spot as practice squad quarterback is pretty much a lock. Um, in that I just don't see any way of him elevating past either of these guys anytime soon. So, how valuable are some of those reps in the sense that, okay, you could give him 10 more reps, Brandon Allen 10 fewer reps. Does that really help you on Tanner Mordecai's progression and his development? I don't think 10 in-game reps is that much of a difference. When you're talking maybe 200 in-game reps, that's a lot. 10, I think that's just, they're going to say, okay, let's make sure we got guys getting used to them being in the huddle if need be, getting through this process. Just get a few times through it with Brandon Allen, and then, but also really the big evaluation I think is going to be on Josh Dobbs.
Yeah, he is clearly, there's not many people, like, just from content creators to just everything that I'm seeing, like not one person doesn't think that he is not going to be QB2. And so we want to see we want to see Josh Dobbs do what Josh Dobbs does. That's almost a tongue twister, but I did get through it. So what about the players who you are looking at to say, okay, if they do not make a significant, like, we're talking, a player that has 4 solo tackles and a gangbuster play, or a receiver that has 4 catches and a touchdown, or a special teamer that makes 3 really good special teams plays, something like that. Who are the players that you're like, if we don't see that, they are not making this team?
Well, top on that list is probably Tracy Walker. He had a rough game last game. Number of just not good reps, and just plays you don't want to put on film, especially when you're vying for already a pretty crowded room. I mean, the safety room is pretty crowded right now when you have Jair Brown and George Odom and Talanoa Hufanga and Malik Mustafa being a fifth safety on this team. That's now, pretty crowded. Now it's a little less crowded. They did waive injured safety Taylor Hawkins, which I didn't see him making the team already, with just where the safety room is. But when I look at Tracy Walker, he's definitely on the outside looking in. They have another young guy there, Mahoney, who's a rookie, and I felt like he played a much cleaner game than Walker did. So Walker, if you're looking for numbers out there, he'll be number 35, old Eric Reed's old number. So watch for him. He needs to make some splash plays. If not, this he may be headed for practice squad at best with the 49ers. A guy that is really intriguing and I think does need to show he's got some juice left in those legs is Matt Breida. The running back room is deep this year, and you start wondering how's this all going to shake out because
Mm.
you have Christian McCaffrey. Okay, well we got that. Well, who are you willing to not have in that room? Because you're looking at Jordan Mason, Elijah Mitchell, you're looking at Isaac Garendo, who they just drafted this year. You were looking at um, Cody Schrader. Sorry, I had a total brain freeze moment. And then Matt Breida. That's six running backs. How many running backs are they going to keep? So
Well,
I
Breida
don't.
over Schrader, right? And it pains me to say that because I met his dad, Tom, in Nashville. Great family. But right?
I mean, you would think, but it also comes at the same point of okay, if you're looking at your fourth running back, who's the more valuable there? Matt
Yeah, the
Breida,
younger guy, maybe.
where there isn't as much tread left on those tires, or do you hold on to Schrader, who you think might be your running back number 2 in 2 years? That's where
I don't think
the
he
question
will,
comes.
though. I don't
Yeah,
to be
well, but
honest,
who else do we have under contract right now other than Isaac Garendo? I mean, Jordan Mason is under contract for next year, but he's not after that. How do you, is he? I think he's going to go want to find somewhere to have a more prominent role to get a bigger contract to make some money. You have Elijah Mitchell. This is his last year under contract. He's not under contract next year. So similar situation. Does he go the Jeff Wilson route where he heads off to Miami? You could easily see that happening. So
I
are the 49ers looking at this and saying, do we keep a guy on that we're going to try and develop in a Ty Davis Price kind of a thing, or do we keep the veteran? That's where I think Matt Breida has to show. He has to show that he is much more valuable to keep than developing the rookie who they let play before Matt Breida in the last game. So, who's not in this running back room, because some people have got to go. There's not enough room for everybody. Who goes? And I think just from the looking at this from my point of view, I think Matt Breida has an uphill climb to make the roster. Now, that's why I say he's somebody to watch. I'm rooting for him. I love him. I think he's got home run speed. I like what he's done in this offense in the past, but that was also 5 years ago. So, that's where things are at with that. I don't know how it's going to shake out. I don't know how much they can trust Elijah Mitchell to be on the field. So who goes, who's in there? I think that really comes down to, can Breida make somebody like Elijah Mitchell expendable? I think that's what it comes down to.
So then let me ask you, why do you think why they brought in Matt Breida if you don't think what was it just like, well, here's a guy who I mean, and that's it? Just here's a guy?
Well, I mean, Elijah Mitchell was dealing with an injury and he's had this history. You had Isaac Garendo had just pulled a hamstring. So you need to be able to run an offense with guys who can run your offense. So you have to bring in somebody who knows the system already, who isn't going to have a complete learn from scratch moment, which is what they had with Cody Schrader. Because
Yeah.
other than that, it's Jordan Mason. And if you don't trust that Jordan Mason really, really knows the system, you're really in a bind here where you're trying to evaluate different positions and different guys. You may have brought Matt Breida in as an evaluation tool because how you feel about him. You're great on him. How you see him in your system and everything. He's more of a constant. It's kind of like first preseason game, what I talked about when you put Brandon Allen in there in the first quarter, because he's a consistent point. He's a proven commodity in your system. It makes evaluation of everything else easier. That's what I think, but I don't know. I mean, I am trying to balance that. Okay, they brought him in, they signed him. They're not just bring him in just to bring him in, but at the same point, have to make it make sense to how he fits in this running back room.
I think, and we'll see who's right because I disagree. I think both Trent Taylor and Matt Breida are on the roster just because I think that they were brought in because of their knowledge of the system and their dependability and their knowledge of what it takes to be a 49er in that locker room. And there's something to be said about that, enough to have them on the roster. Now, could I be wrong? And that wouldn't be a bad thing if I'm wrong, because that means that they truly trust the guys that deep down may have more upside or slash more talent. As we know, especially in Trent Taylor's case, he's not the most talented of anything, of speed, like running, making cuts, like whatever thing you want to say with the receiver, he is not the best at any of it. The only thing he provides is he's done it before, he knows the system, and when he's out there catching a punt, we don't look like this with one eye open and just hoping he catches it. We simply don't do that. So again, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I want to get into a question that Pretty Good asked as we maybe shift to defense a little bit. He asked earlier, is our fourth defensive end on this team, or will they pick up one after cuts? What do you think? That's a
I
good
think they'll
question. That's why I wanted to bring it
yeah,
up.
it is. I think they'll give a look at who's out there. I
Pretty good
don't
question.
foresee them going out and grabbing anybody. I just don't see it happening. I do think our fourth defensive end is on this roster. I think they're going to end up with 5 defensive ends that they take into the season. I think it's going to be Nick Bosa, Floyd, Gross Matos, Alex Barrett, and then Robert Beal. I think that is your defensive end depth chart heading into the season.
That's not terrible. I mean,
It's not. Robert Beal is the big question mark there. He's somebody
right.
that just has been so. Oh, I guess the best way to put it is just lackluster. I've wanted to see more. I've wanted to see more understanding of the system. It's just not there. I'm not seeing a lot of juice there. Now, Alex Barrett to me has been the best defensive end so far this preseason. Um, if I was giving out grades, he would be, like PFF style, he would be the highest graded defensive end, is how I would see him. So, that I think he's in that solid number 3 spot there. Gross Matos has been getting some reps. He's been up a little up and down on the edge. Needs to hold discipline a little bit more there on the edge. But I think between Alex Barrett and Gross Matos, they feel okay. But that's also a thin room. A Nick Bosa or Floyd goes down, you're hurting.
Right. It almost makes me wonder about um it, I know the numbers just didn't add up and make sense, but thinking of um Chase Young, since we just saw him, and hearing the stories out of Tampa Bay with Randy Gregory. Did you hear about that? He just no call, no showed. And the coach Todd
Yeah.
Bowles is like, well, I guess you can't miss what you never had. Like, that is just so funny to me. Like, what in the world is going on with Randy Gregory? But
Yeah, because I've seen some things about we should, try and kick the tires on Randy Gregory and think about bringing him back. Um, I don't know. It seems like dudes. There was a reason that the Broncos traded him to us for like a 6th
uh,
rounder.
right. For a nickel.
As after they had signed him to a big contract just a couple years ago, and they ate a lot of dead money on that. So, yeah, it maybe around October, if there's an injury and you're really
Yeah. You
needing
still have to
something, you go and you sniff around Randy Gregory.
hopefully we don't even come to that, obviously, right? But yeah, so will be interesting to see how the roster shakes out. Remind everyone, because I even forget. So after the last preseason game, what's the time frame of when the final roster cuts are made?
I believe final roster cuts are going to be next Tuesday.
That's what I
So
thought too.
yeah, I think it's Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern time is when the final cuts usually will come in. I think you're going to start to see a wave of cuts come in tomorrow. They're gonna know. They already know about 10 to 15 guys that are going to be cut.
Yeah.
Um, and they maybe just, some of these guys might even get reps tomorrow that they've already known no matter what happens, they're going to be gone. And what they're going to do is they're just going to use those moments, one, to get a little bit more film on them for
Mhm.
if they wanted to bring them back, and or if they're just looking to kind of save some body wear and tear. But they already know most of the guys are going to cut. I think then there's going to be, watch the film, really look in 2 days of deliberations among coaches about the, really hemming and hawing over the last few guys. I think that then you'll see another wave come in probably Tuesday morning, and then by early afternoon Tuesday, the last few cuts with maybe a couple surprises in there.
Yeah, that's not something I would enjoy doing, I don't think. Like, not from two standpoints. One, like, this is someone's livelihood, and to have to tell them that, hey, it's probably not going to work out for you with this organization is not fun. And then the second thing is, I'm selfishly looking at that as, I hope I make the right decision in letting this running back go and not that one, and hope that was the right decision. Because if not, and that guy ends up, who I cut, ends up going to Dallas and has 10 touchdowns this year, now that's bad look on me. Like, why did I let him go? So, like, that is a job that I do not like.
Adam looking at Trent Taylor going and getting 10 touchdowns in Dallas. Don't
No,
cut Trent Taylor. That
no,
Taylor kid's gonna go really do it
because why
in
would
like
they make a
McCarthy's
big deal?
offense.
Why would they make a big deal on social media? You mentioned how he came out in the preseason game and stuff. Like, why would they do all that to cut him? It just doesn't, to me, doesn't make sense. I think they had a plan all along to
Well,
kind of
he was
have some
brought in as a return
stability.
guy. I mean, Trent Taylor was brought in as a return guy, and that's his role on this team. Somebody
Sure.
has to take that role from him that Kyle Shanahan would trust. Remember,
Right.
Shanahan hates the idea of young guys back there fielding punts,
Yeah.
because his view on special teams is, don't lose you the game.
Right. Right.
Don't lose me the game, because the number one metric for win loss, the number one, we talk about how many times teams run the ball, turnover differential. The number one predictor of if you will win or lose a game is a special teams turnover. If you turn the ball over on special teams, you have like a 98% chance of losing.
Playoffs at Green Bay. We had no one picked us to win that game, and look what happened. Their special teams, they couldn't even get 11 guys on the field at home to try and block one of our kicks. They had so many snafus on special teams, from letting us block and return a punt, and then when we kick a field goal, they only have 10 guys on the field.
Yeah.
I mean, that
I
is the
mean,
all-time for
go
me.
back
Like,
to, I mean, I really
don't bring
had
it
some
up. Are
people
you
in their
really
feels
are you really gonna bring it
last
up?
Super Bowl, because I put out a video yesterday talking, quick short video on the differences between Sorensen and Wilkes with the pressure packages. But again, go back to the Super Bowl. There was one team who muffed a punt and turned it over in that Super Bowl. They did not win. The number one predictor of if you will win or lose a game, like, your chances of winning go astronomically down if you turn over a ball on a punt. And so, like, I had this back and forth with Rob Guerrera. He does a great job with GSN Sports. So that we were going back, because I said that I think Trent Taylor is in the pole position for that 6 wide receiver spot. People are saying, no, it's going to be Conley. No, it's going to be, Ronnie Bell. I, Jacob Cowan can already do the punt return stuff. And it's like, I said, you're downplaying the role of special teams on that 6 wide receiver spot and overplaying the role of being a receiver on that number 6 spot. And they're like, well, Trent Taylor adds no juice. Why, if it was just about mitigating risk, then you don't even field a punt. You just let them punt. Well, no, because then they're going to hit a line drive and just bounce it as far as they'll go. That's what's going to happen every time. You don't give up 20 yards, but to not give up 20 yards, you want a guy who you trust is not going to mess that punt up. because you are almost guaranteed to lose if you do. You can handle your quarterback throwing an interception. You can't. It is much harder to recover from losing a punt in a game. How many times did we see the 49ers with Harbaugh here, in different years, end up forcing some sort of a turnover on special teams and they win a game that they had almost was like they had no business winning. It's just that's what it is. So that's why I think I don't I have to separate here because people think because people would come back to, well, so you're saying that you would do Trent Taylor? I said, no, I'm not saying I would have Trent Taylor as our number 6 wide receiver. I'm saying Kyle Shanahan would, because we have to get in Kyle Shanahan's head that
Right.
he really is confident in his offense, that they're going to get explosives. They're going to move the ball. They're going to score points. He believes in that. With this roster, you can't blame him for being very confident in that. He's done a lot more with less. Like he's very confident that their offense is going to score points. He doesn't want his special teams to lose in the game. That's what he doesn't want. So, yeah, I'm not going to give up 20 yards. That's ridiculous. But my number 6 wide receiver, that guy's not going to be going out there getting us 400 yards on the year. That guy's job is to not lose us the game on special teams. And that sounds conservative. That sounds like Kyle Shanahan. That
Right.
really does. So I would have Chris Conley right now as our number 6 wide receiver. I feel about 85% certain that Kyle Shanahan will have Trent Taylor as his number 6 wide receiver. That's the difference. I like Chris Conley as a receiver a whole lot more. I think Kyle Shanahan values that number 6 wide receiver spot for Trent Taylor and the safety blanket that he is.
That's what I think too, 100%. And I agree that I like Conley more as well. I mean, you've seen even just from last year. Well, obviously last year Trent Taylor wasn't with our football team. So, I mean, of course, when we look at the argument of why Brock Purdy is so good is because some of those highlights he's throwing to Chris Conley, and people are saying, Chris, who? Other fans are like, who is this guy that Brock Purdy's throwing to? And we're like, yeah, see, he's not just throwing to our all pro caliber type people. He can throw to a guy named Chris Conley who you've never heard of. And that's our argument of why Brock Purdy is so good. Okay, so is there a level of we want to beat the Raiders? We've talked about some of these teams like the Titans and some of these football teams that don't have the culture that we do that truly want to win the game. And I know that it's not even in the same state anymore. I totally get that, but a rivalry is a rivalry is a rivalry. Do we just flat out want to beat the Raiders? Are we allowed to say that? Like I want to.
I mean, have we never ever not been allowed to say that?
Right?
I think. I mean, come on. The Raiders. They've been. I'm about to say something. I'm going to pull back from the edge. They've been the abused stepchild from
You didn't want to say redheaded.
northwestern Europe.
You didn't want to say redheaded. I'll say it. What do you
Um,
do? That's the term. I didn't make it
I
up. I
well,
didn't make
look,
it up.
we're not that kind of show here, Adam. No, but it's the Raiders. I mean, we don't want good things to happen to the Raiders. They're the Raiders over there, and I mean, yeah, they went off to Las Vegas, but it's the Raiders, and their fans have been, second worst in the NFL, only to the Eagles. So, I mean, you kind of enjoy watching some not so great things happening to them, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know how I 100% how I really feel about this game. I don't feel like any major emotion on preseason games about win or loss. I just want to see guys make strides. I want to see guys play well. I want to see movements in progression and that depth. That's really all I care about. So, I mean, I kind of get into it, but I also don't. Of like, I mean, I remember years ago it was a 49ers Raiders game. Didn't somebody get stabbed? It was like 10, 12 years ago, something like that, after the game. And then they decided to not have the Interbay team preseason festivities that had been year after year after that. They didn't play each other in the preseason for a long time because They just didn't want it to be so heated and stuff over preseason. I'm like, I don't get it. It's just preseason.
So, of course, we have to thank Lisa uh, for the super chat. And she says, I just want to win so I can laugh at all my coworkers. Besides, it's their Super Bowl. Yeah, if the Raiders beat us in a preseason game, they get to tell everyone and announce to Facebook that they
That
have beaten
Minshew
this,
madness is back.
which we'll see how long he plays. The other thing, the correlation with the Raiders and the Niners was for about 18 seconds, there was talk about, I don't know who started it, but it's of course got traction because it did sound sexy. Was the, how if we did some kind of swap for their receiver over
Devontae
there
Adams.
who catches the football and our beloved Brandon Ayuk. I mean, geesh, that would be a game changer. I mean, that guy is good, and it was funny. There was a lot of talk over the last few years about Jimmy G, and to watch the on Netflix receiver with our own Debo and Kittle was pretty cool. But it did kind of shed a little bit of light on Jimmy G when Devontae Adams is so frustrated with the way that Jimmy cannot get him the ball. And it was kind of interesting to see, a little bit sad, just on the sideline, his frustration over Jimmy Garoppolo. Did you see all that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd be hard pressed not to see a lot of those clips.
Yeah, that's true.
Look, we don't know. The Raiders were a mess last year, from Josh McDaniels to the dysfunction there with Devontae Adams and Jimmy G, and uh, you know, he- I see some of that on the other side. Um, that's the NFL. Sometimes greener pastures are not always greener pastures. And Josh McDaniels has also shown that he hasn't been able to do anything without a quarterback named Tom Brady. So
Yeah,
you know,
it's
what yeah,
crazy to think.
it's everything.
I like what Mike B says. Yeah, if that's truly how it is, and he don't block, then yikes, he's not coming over.
Yeah, yeah. Devontae Adams, like that's the issue I have with Devontae Adams is that he was talking all that he was talking, but also, he was in a much different kind of offensive system with Green Bay than he was in with the Raiders. The Raiders were coming in and they had Brandon Jacobs, and it's like, you got to use that guy. And did I just say Brandon Jacobs? I didn't mean Brandon Jacobs. Anyways, not the old running back from the Giants.
You get your coffee today?
It's I'm trying. I'm trying. I was up last night with some late last night with some interesting folks. I'll have to tell you about it sometime.
Yeah.
But you know, yeah. I don't see Devontae Adams as a good fit with this team. I was never that enamored. He's a great weapon. He's a great receiver. I would choose Brandon Ayuk in this system, not generally as just a receiver, but in our system and what we do. I would Josh Jacobs. Yeah, I said Brandon Jacobs. But I would not be in love with that deal, especially with the kind of money that Devontae Adams comes with that. And if you have a receiver who's on a show that he knows is going to be coming out, like, okay, so I remember Devontae Adams in preseason that year. They had an interview with him and they asked him about Jimmy G. And he just went on and on about how great Jimmy is. He always knows where to go with the ball. He's so cool, calm, and collected, and he's a great leader and all this stuff. I mean, was just blowing so much smoke up his rear end. Then when you have a mic on you on the sideline and your team has been losing and you're having all this stuff, you're going off about how much you're getting hit and you need to get out of here when you chose to take the big money to go there. And then they ask you about your opinion on benching Jimmy G, and he's like, "Yeah, I was okay with that." Like, uh, nah, nah. I don't jive well with that all that whole situation. So yeah, I was never like, yes, we need to go. This is an instant trade Brandon Ayuk for Devontae Adams, and it's not happening.
Yeah. I just look at from the weapon standpoint of what it could open up for Kittle and for CMC out of the backfield and things like that. But yes, it wouldn't jive well with the team, and
Yeah, but the moment
hopefully,
Brock Purdy throws him a ball into a contested area over the middle and he gets hit, and he's going to be crying about how he needs to get out of San Francisco.
yeah. Well, San Francisco wins though. So I feel like if he I do respect him for being hurt like he was and going out there, and he was, that pain was real, I think.
Right.
And I do respect that for a team that sucks, our cheeks, and he still goes out there. Imagine what he would do with Debo and Kittle and those guys. I mean, so you know, I look at that, but yes, would he be a good fit like in the locker room and all that? I don't know. Um, so we'll see how today goes. Later tonight, hopefully everyone can watch. Yes, Lisa says diva.
Lisa, she's not holding back. He is a diva.
So, and say that in the tone of what they do in Jacksonville, Duval, like diva. So, um, it'll be interesting to see tonight, and then all the roster changes. You think even this weekend they'll start, announcing some of those cuts, and then Tuesday, that boy, next Friday will really be, to be honest, a pretty good show if I do say so myself, because to go over all of that for the first time, all of the roster and all of that, I think will be really fun to see and pick apart what Shanahan's thoughts were on, like we're talking about, the receivers, the defensive ends. What are we doing? Like, how are we looking then going into the game against the Jets, which, if you remember, I will be attending section 133, seats 1, 2, and 3. Come and find me, and make sure you email us if you are planning on going. Definitely would love to meet up and maybe talk to you guys. I'll have my microphones hooked to my phone, and we can get some content and do some stuff for the channel. That would be really, really cool. So yeah, keep us posted. Email us at giantdalesfootballacademy@gmail.com. Okay. So anything else major going into today's game that you want to cover, that you're looking for, other
The
than
biggest thing
beat the Raiders?
Well, the biggest thing I think is I want to see how the linebackers shake out. I think we have a really interesting
Mm.
competition there, and we may have some of the best depth at linebacker that we've had in a while. Uh, a guy like Curtis Robinson, I've been really high on him since the last game. I thought he played an outstanding game against the Saints. If he puts together another game like that, I think it's going to be really hard to keep him off the field while Dre Greenlaw's working his way back. So, and then D Winters has flashed. He was dealing with an undisclosed injury last game, so we don't know what the deal is there. But I want to see him again. I think both of these guys are pushing Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles out. Now, Jalen Graham is a guy that has flashed several times in run stops. And this is what he showed last year, is that he was phenomenal at some run stops, making some great run stops. He has been a liability in coverage. Now, DFF has been the opposite. He's been really good in coverage, but he has been absolutely stuck in quicksand versus the run. And the one thing that we cannot do this season that we did not do as well last season is you can't just be mediocre against the run. You have got to be first, you have got to be stellar against the run. You can't be Your pass defense is going to suck so much more when you are at 3rd and 3 than when you're at 3rd and 7. So I, I'm wanting to see those guys kind of push DFF down, because DFF, by this point in his career, I don't see him taking a huge leap. So I like everything I've heard about him, but this isn't like a personal thing. Just as a business side, I think Curtis Robinson, D Winters, Jalen Graham, I would feel much better about those guys as the top of the top 4 right now depth chart, while Dre Greenlaw's working his way back, than I would with DFF. I think where they're where I want to see Jalen Graham get to and D Winters get to is make it between DFF and Tatum Bethune. Bethune was really again, another guy good against the run, absolute not good against in coverage. Just does not understand the nuances of NFL coverage units. So, but he's a rookie, and so if you believe good enough into Curtis Robinson, D Winters, Jalen Graham, then you don't feel as much that you need to hold on to DFF as your veteran security blanket. Now we also have Devondre Campbell there, so I think he's on the outside looking in. He would have to put together a phenomenal game for me to feel like, yes, this guy has really gotten a spot here over these young guys.
Yeah. Shout out to Glass City with a super chat. And this was something that I was interested to find out from you too, Johnny. What is your opinion on PFF and how they evaluate players in coverage and O-line play? Do you put a lot of stock in it?
Well, okay. So here's where I want to be careful with PFF. I think there's some things that they do really well. I think there's a lot of their stat tracking is next to or is second to no one.
Next level stuff, yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the people that work at PFF, they have their system and they have their way of doing things. And under their way, it makes a lot of sense for them. And I think there are some knowledgeable people there. Here's the problem I have with their system, and I get it. Bobby Slowick was part of the group that put that together. Is that I do have a little bit of an issue with the way that they grade, in that they will grade on a curve with style points, like they're like their big time throw metric, which is a +2 for a quarterback. If a quarterback makes a big time throw, it's a +2. And that may be a guy who is throwing into tight man coverage and he fits a ball into a very small window for a big gain. But then they will look at a play where a guy's running wide open down the middle because the quarterback may have looked a safety off, and then he throws that ball. That is not considered a big time throw because it wasn't into a small window. It wasn't so many yards down the field or whatever. And so a quarterback gets a 0. Well, a quarterback did a really good job on that second one, and he gets 0 points. A quarterback may have even thrown into maybe what the read was not the best throw on the other one that they deemed a big time throw, and he'll get +2. So that's where I have a little bit of an issue. I understand why they're trying to separate out, who can be a difference maker, somebody that is able to make these really tight window throws, like what you've seen in some of the Super Bowl finishes, like Ben Roethlisberger to Santonio Holmes in the back of the end zone, right? That's a very small window throw in the most. That is a big time throw. So they're saying obviously that is worth more than something, and a guy who can do that. That's what they're trying to tell you. But I don't think it always equals out to an accurate presentation of how effective a quarterback is. Same thing with a lot of play. Like when they credit an offensive lineman with sacks or pressures given up, and then that affects their grade, they're graded on, did the guy that was close, were they the guy closest to that person who got that?
Gave up for
So,
that, yeah.
now where that can be a problem is, say, a tackle is taking a short set because he's expecting a running back on the other side to come across in
Right.
jet protection and pick up the defensive end. PFF will say, well, if the running back doesn't ever cross over there and get close, well, he's not the closest guy to block him. So they don't do anything against the running back because they'll say, well, we couldn't be certain that was the running back. We just know that the closest guy to that player was the left tackle, and he did not block him, and he sacked the quarterback. And so that's a -2 for the left tackle. Well, that's a blown assignment by somebody else. Or, same thing with some stunts. If the center allows himself too far vertical and there's a stunt that comes over and blows up the right guard, and there's pressure that comes over the right guard, they'll pin that on the right guard and grade them. And that's where I have some issue with some of the gradings from PFF. Same thing with coverages too, is that they will give coverage grades based on who was the closest defender to the receiver who caught the ball. Well, that doesn't mean that was that guy's assignment. Like, for example, we had a busted coverage, and I showed it on my breakdown video where Samuel Womack doesn't travel where the receiver he's supposed to go. Malik Mustafa, who's the deep middle safety, is the one to get over there. And I think they ended up crediting Malik Mustafa negatively for that play because he was the closest guy in coverage, right?
Yeah.
He's not even in that responsibility at all. That's a busted coverage from Samuel Womack. So that's where I see, imperfections in their grading. I understand, they have a lot of film to watch and they have a lot of stuff to go through. And it's very much the analytical approach. And you don't know everybody's particular scheme. So there is always going to be some guesswork. There's always going to be a little bit of guesswork. I have a little bit of guesswork in what I do. I will never say that I know this 100%, 100%, 100%. But you do have to infer clues a lot of times and say, well, this is what we think. In the end, that's why I do tend to trust coaches' evaluations because they have printouts
Yeah, they know
of,
the play.
of what the play was. This was what was supposed to happen. This is the angle that was supposed to be taken. And they give their own player grades. And Shanahan, I think, has talked about this over time. Chris Forrester's talked about it over time. Trent Williams has talked about this, that coaches' grades and PFF grades never align. That they're just always off a little bit. Now, I do think it is a kind of tool. Is it the most valuable tool for me? No. I don't put a lot of stock in it because I tend to watch the film myself and make my own decisions. That's what it is. But I understand. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of stuff that you got to get through to know that. I just don't like arguments being made online using PFF as like an authoritative source. That's where I start having issues. I'm like, it can be useful, but it's not a definitive argument winner at all. If you're using PFF like stuff to win an argument, then there's gonna be a lot of holes to be poked in that.
Yeah, there is not many holes to poke in the fact that you should take your phone, find someone wearing Niners gear, and show them the channel for this exact reason. As Pretty Good even mentions, I mean, I am one as well who has learned so much from this channel, and so the breakdowns and how we go over things on this podcast as well is so awesome. I'm so lucky to get a front row seat to everything. So we want more people. We can't just have 22.5 thousand people aware of this when there are so many Niner fans across the country and even globe, as we have people from different countries usually in this very chat. So the way that you help us is by taking your phone, finding someone that's wearing Niners gear, and show them the channel. Pick out your favorite video. Mine from last year was definitely, speaking of Purdy Good, the video that talked about why Brock Purdy should be the MVP. And I just love how even in the opening, you set up some of the negative things and then you use that as, but this is why he's so good, because look at what happens here where, yeah, he takes this sack and then look how he learns from it and it's a big play. All things like that are huge because people just say, oh, it's just going to be a video that shows 18 highlights, and every even bad players can have a 4-minute video of their highlights. And that's not what this is. It's true breakdown. And that's what the channel's about, the whys and hows. So be sure that you have hit the notification bell. Be sure that you have checked out the website, JFA49.com, if you have not already. Shout out to PowerBrandSystems.com for putting that together. Those guys are great. And they've helped me with a couple other projects as well. Johnny, tell us about where you get your meats from before we go.
So I tried something new. As many people know that we have a great relationship with White Oak Pastures. They are a 6th generation regenerative family farm in Bluffton, Georgia, a town of less than 300 people, and they employ over 180 people in their town. They are the primary source of employment for almost the entire town. They actually were the ones who have hired and paid the salary of the school teachers in town, because they needed teachers for their employees as kids. Um, the owner, Will Harris, he's been on a number of different news channels. You've seen him on CNN, you've seen him on Fox News, you've seen him on different podcasts around that. He's been talking about regenerative farming. We're not talking about just organic. Organic is a thing, but it's also a marketing thing. This is about true regenerative farming, where it says we're going to get the chemicals off of our land, and we're going to treat the land in a way that is good for the land first, and then production second, because that's our land is our best commodity. It's the one thing I remember. It was back in the movie. A lot of people didn't like it. I kind of liked it, but it was Superman Returns. It was the one directed by Bryan Singer. Also did The Usual Suspects, one of my favorite movies. But
Some
where he
X-Men
has,
movies too.
yeah, he did X1 and 2, and then he did X-Men Days of Futures Past.
Yep.
But in that movie, Superman Returns, Lex Luger is sitting there, and if you remember the plot of the movie, he's going to be building this giant island out of crystal and stuff growing in the ocean, because he says, my dad always told me, son, invest in land. That's the only thing they're not making any more of. And so, as land, it's the only thing they're not making any more of. We have to take care of the land in a responsible way, in a way that promotes the growth of the of the bio I'm totally blanking on stuff. I didn't get enough sleep last night, Adam. But the biosphere in the ground, with all the different organisms, to keep healthy soil. When you have healthy soil, it acts like a sponge to pull carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. It cleans your water runoff. You're not destroying all the microorganisms that are in there. And so that's their number one goal. And on the side benefit of that for us as people is that it produces livestock that is so much healthier for everybody, because these are animals that are not eating things like Roundup and feed treated with Roundup. They're not going over eating grass that's been given huge amounts of ammonium nitrate and phosphate fertilizers. You're getting animals that have had natural diets, so they produce less methane, which breaks down into carbon dioxide. That's a big problem with cows, right? They say we need to get rid of cows. We need to do printed meat because it's better for the environment. They actually, if the way that White Oak Pastures does it, every pound of beef that they produce actually removes a pound of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, because the soil is so much healthier, because the animal has less gas, because it has a natural diet. That's kind of how everything works, right? Like you go to, if you only eat American food and you go suddenly eat a whole bunch of Indian food, guess what happens? Your tummy gets a little upset. It's not used to that, not meant for that. And that's the same thing happens with cows. They're not meant to eat grain and corn. They don't process it well. They have 3 stomachs. That's just they don't work it as well. Grass is much better on their digestive system, so they produce less gas. They are healthier in so many ways. And recently I tried one of their pasture raised chickens, which actually they have worked in cooperation with a co-op in Arkansas on the other side of me. So I'm, getting a chicken that was originally from a co-op in Arkansas sent to me from Georgia, and I'm in Alabama, right in the middle. But it is a pasture raised chicken. I roasted in my oven, posted a picture of it on X. You can see it there. It's absolutely amazing. A great flavor. And it's just, these things are so much healthier for us as people. I had a dear friend of mine, dear friend of mine, very recently had a triple bypass heart surgery. And the one thing he told me afterwards, and this is within the last few weeks, he said, I've always felt like I was one of the healthiest people at my age, because we're it's not about if you're large or small or anything like that. The heart, there's other things that are involved. And what we're finding more and more is get away from a lot of seed oils, get away from animals that have been produced by just eating lots of what is essentially processed sugars. When you're looking at grains and corn and molasses and corn syrup is what they feed cows. And you get a livestock product that is so much better for you, that is natural for you, and has a very important omega-3s that you don't get from animals that haven't been raised on natural diets. Omega-3s are anti-inflammatory. Omega-6s are pro-inflammatory. And that's what you see in a lot of oils. That's what you see in the fats out of a lot of animals that have been raised on grain and corn. and soy and things. You see a lot of high level of omega-6s, very few omega-3s. Omega-3s, they help your heart. They clear out inflammation. They clear out blockages. It's so much better for you. So, you can go head over to whiteoakpastures.com/JD49, and the food is just phenomenal. They have sausages, they have grinds that are just, it's really worth your time. Check it out. I don't push them because, just because we have an affiliate with them, they may not ship to your area. They're in Georgia. It's 2-day shipping. They send it frozen, packed in dry ice. It gets to me the next day. I order all my meat from them. But if you're you want to be healthier in your life, you want to invest in that, find a regenerative farm. There's a number of them that are online. You can look at them, not just for where I am. If White Oak Pastures works for you, that's great. It's fantastic. I think they're one of the more affordable companies that are there, but it is an investment. But it's just like with my friend. Would you rather invest in that in your food that's still going to taste great and amazing, and you get to eat the things that you've normally eaten, it's just from a different source? Or would you want to pay that later when you're laid up in the hospital for a week? We food related illnesses are about 1/5 of all of our medical spending in this country. We need to be healthier as people. And this is one way we can do it, by saying we're going to take care of the land and we're going to take care of our animals better, and we can do better. That's the thing. You can't expect the big corporations to do this. They're working on, the fixed price point models, that it's about cheapest costs. So, I go support them, help create this market that's there. We as people value this in our lives. So whiteoakpastures.com/JD49.
So the chat had some fun, and I did as well. And definitely not at your expense, but I will say this, that Johnny is passionate about a lot of things. And once you get to a certain amount of subscribers, you can have many different types of links or ways into to make money, which is important because he does put in a lot of work. And it's fair that he gets paid so that you guys can come in and hang out with us, but he doesn't just pick anything. It's some things that he picks are what he truly, truly does believe in. And so that's why I mentioned that in the chat, that yeah, because Mike B said, "Man, I hope this sponsorship is paying him good." And I'll be honest, it pays more the more that you guys buy, and I have no
Well,
problem
yeah.
saying that. But he's not just saying this because he wants you to help him make more money. He's doing it because he truly does believe in what White Oak Pastures does, and he truly gets his meat from there. We've talked about it off camera, which makes him no money. For him to talk about it off camera with me doesn't make him any money, and he still talks about it. So I'm just telling you guys that I think that's pretty cool. So,
Yeah,
um,
and White Oak Pastures, like Raw has said, it's 100% true. You've only got like 4 big meat producers or packaging plants that are distributors to all of the major grocery chains, and they're like, Whole Foods didn't used to be that, and they've been bought out, and they're moving that direction. White Oak Pastures used to be the largest supplier to Whole Foods market until Whole Foods got bought out, and now they're going to cheaper production models that they're trying to get money from. And then just, if it's organic, they put that on there. But the difference between organic and what White Oak Pastures does is huge. They're an independent seller, so the meat does never leaves their property from the time that animal is born until it is sent to you, because they have 2 USDA inspected facilities on site. They butcher on site, they process on site. So, this is not sent off for anything. That the meat that's coming to you, it was from their farm. There's some of these different companies that go out there, uh, that that what they do is they kind of harvest from a number of different farmers. So the quality can vary. These guys are it's only from their facility, and so, you are guaranteed that kind of quality. And I would say, yeah, I've never been let down. Now, when you buy steaks, if you've never had a grass fed, grass finished steak, you need to, and one that's been processed and hasn't been hung to age for weeks, you do need to wet age them. So, biggest mistake people make is that they buy them and they defrost them, and and they throw it on their skillet, and it's a little tough, and they say, it wasn't what I was expecting. I got a pack that they had. It was a 12 pack of ribeye steaks. Were doing a special around the 4th of July, 12 pack. It was $200. I got that 12 pack. And what I did is every few days I set one in my fridge from the freezer, and I put a date on it so I would know what it is. And I've waited at least 16 days after I pulled it out to let it wet age in the fridge, and it comes out phenomenal. It's absolutely great. My wife will attest. 3 minutes each side, high heat, perfectly medium rare, great flavor. It's everything, and just a little bit of salt and pepper and a little bit of garlic. That's all I put on it.
And she says facts, so she can confirm. Um, so yeah, shout out to White Oak Pastures. The link is not only in the description in the show notes, but also right there in the chat. So if you're watching on YouTube, which is the most fun way to watch. So again, best way to support the channel, check out jfa49.com. Be sure to take your phone and show the channel to anyone that you can, including friends and family. So thanks again for all the support, guys. Another great show. We love hanging out with you, and we will catch you Monday. In the meantime, though, have fun watching the game tonight. Stay safe, stay healthy, and as always and forevermore, go Niners.